live on the oldest road in the Santa Cruz Mountains, which is Mountain Charlie Road. And so it's about a mile from the chateau. So back in the 70s, we went there quite a bit and saw a lot of great bands there too. It was a while ago, but let me just say I rolled with the Doobies there, Doobie Brothers that is. Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen, that was fabulous. I remember seeing the Tubes there. Moby Grape was another one that I saw that I just absolutely loved.
We were there the entire time the Chateau Liberte was open.
Yep.
And we were the bartenders.
We bartended
every night. But you got up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, you're in 72 acres, half a mile off of a main road, and you could pretty much take off all your clothes and be naked. And yeah, they would have these frat contests and get girls up there and take their tops off. Yeah, that happened quite a few times.
But we never did.
The bands, the people, the bartenders, everybody was free. You know, they were totally free to do whatever they wanted to do. Very, very unique.
I do have to say, I think we took our tops off a couple times.
And well, you know, we won't get into that.
We're not going to get into that.
The group really got its start in a raunchy dance club in the hills called the Chateau Liberte. They were earning $60 a night back then and living basically on brown rice and food stamps.
This is where the Hells Angels used to set up right here and tweet girls on the bottom as they'd come through the door. This is the entrance here. This was where we had our first album cover on the Doobie Brothers. Very first album, we were all sitting here.
The chateau, and there's like a Bermuda Triangle of memory, you know, like I've been there, I've played there, but just nobody has these crystal clear memories. So I think there's something, a fog around the place, maybe the redwood trees. But I do remember the time when I guess it was the Doobie Brothers were starting to have success with, I think it was listening to the music or whatever their hit was there, Long Train Running. But they weren't going to play there anymore, so I went up with John Craviotto, who was a mutual friend, and watching him. It was great.
Well, you had your bikers, and you had your hippies, and you had your occasional redneck there as well. So it was a real mix of people, kind of countercultural 70s group in there. And it was always different, you know, but there were always bikers there for sure. And there was always that zigzag man that was painted on the bottom of the swimming pool, which I only went in once, by the way.
The main structure was built in 1865, and for nearly a half-century, it was the stagecoach stop between San Jose and Santa Cruz. Later, it would become a brothel and a speakeasy, and as a resort be known as the Anchorage, Chateau Boussy, and Chateau Regis. In 1971, Jim Richardson took over and named it the Chateau Liberte. With the Gypsy Jokers and Hells Angels motorcycle clubs as security, major rock bands played there for the next 5 years. But the Chateau Liberte was much more than just a rock music venue. People were born there, people lived there, and people died there. I'm W.J. McKay. I hung out up there in the late 1970s. To me, it felt like being in the middle of nowhere and the center of the universe all at the same time. Up there in a temperate rainforest, surrounded by freaks and hippies and angels from hell.
Crazy. I get a little bit tired of the same scene when I want to wake up from this bad dream. Just head on down to that old saloon. Gotta hear a little country music. I'm gonna lay 20 on the bartender. I ain't going all alone. I'm gonna dip my heels through and holler. There's a little hell in the hill.
worked the Chateau from the time that I was 5.5 years old till I was about 16 years old, and I saw a lot of shit happen. And I'm here to tell you this story. And so Skip Spence was one of the guys that were there, and there was a lot of hippies there, and there was a lot of people taking acid, and there was a lot of people doing other stuff too. A lot of perversion, a lot of violence. It was fantastic. But one morning I woke up and I went outside, and Skip Spence is crawling next to the chicken coop. Skip Spence, where is he? Skip Spence, he's crawling next to the chicken coop, and he didn't have a big beard at the time, but he was still tripping on acid from the night before, and he was talking to the chickens, and he was like talking to the chickens, trying to have a conversation with the chickens, and I don't think they were really talking back too much.
Yeah, boy, the Chateau. I was 19 about 1979, and so one time we were up there and it was all shut down. We were flying on acid and had a bunch of beer and pot. We were sitting around out in front of it and just smoking out, and me and a couple friends, and this goat comes wandering up, and I just started talking to the goat, just like it was a real person. You know, it's just flying on acid. I was like, "Oh, hey, buddy, how's it going?" And the goat just became mesmerized by me, and he walked up and he took his little head and he like pushed it right up against my stomach, and it was like, we were all looking at it and going, "Wow, what is this goat doing?" And then he backed up and he got up on his hind legs and just started dancing, and he just did this dance for us like 3 or 4 times, and it was just like, wow. And the full moon was just shining down on us. We were just like going, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable."
That girl will never be mine, never be mine. Sing me a breeze, sing me a sky, sing me a rainbow, but don't sing of love.
Captain Whizzo.
Whizzo, Captain Whizzo, Captain Whizzo.
Captain Whizzo. But I also want to say something about Captain Whizzo. Okay, Captain Whizzo used to live in the house that was right next to the Chateau. He was a fantastic guy. He used to get these two kind of dishes, glass dishes, and maybe you already know the story, but he would mix oils and waters and watercolors and put them through a projector screen, so they would play, the screen would project itself on a white screen behind the band, and it was this weird psychedelic trippy thing, and he used to do it every night, and he used to let us go up there sometimes and kind of play around a little bit, do some of the stuff. Maybe it was because he had to go pee, or maybe it was because he wanted to go have another drink. Actually, that's probably not it, because he probably had plenty of booze up there. So all I want to say is Captain Whizzo was fantastic. He was really friendly all the time.
Captain Whizzo was just closing up the place and doing his thing. And he says, "You guys look awful weird." So he had Charlie Chaplin movies and all these old-time funny flicks that he got at the library. And so we just stayed up all night, loaded on acid, watching the movies.
And I don't know if he's still around nowadays, but if he's not, and even if he is, then go Captain Whizzo.
After almost a decade at the Chateau Liberte and some quiet years in New Mexico, Captain Whizzo returned to New York City in 1985. He was determined to keep his brand of art relevant to the city hipsters. Whizzo became a creative force in the New York City club scene. He performed at the Mind's Eye, a psychedelic club that moved around the city for several years. That's where he was discovered by Stephen Hager, editor of High Times magazine. Whizzo quickly became a major creative contributor to High Times. Whizzo would go on to bring his light show to the world while touring with the Charlatans UK. But this lifestyle was catching up with him. His career ended as he began to develop health problems in his early 40s. Captain Whizzo's lights went out for good on April Fool's Day in 1993. Always the joker, right to the very end.
Good guys and bad guys were, could do things together and have a common cause without trying to kill each other. It was a way different way. Though, I gotta say, there was a bunch of crazy people doing stupid shit for a lot of different reasons.
Most of the people were the local psychedelic mystic nation that hung out there and stuff from all levels, from the Hells Angels, and so I dealt. We were the biggest distributors of LSD, and we were getting it from the Hells Angels in San Francisco at the time.
I can remember a particularly poignant moment backstage when the Grateful Dead family was there, all their drug dealers and everybody that traveled with them. And somebody said to John Cipollina, "John, man, why don't you jam when we get to the encores and stuff?" And John said, "Oh, no way, man. No, I just came to listen tonight, man. It's Bob's birthday. I want to hang out with my friends. You'd have to write my name in cocaine to get me to play." And one of the Dead's drug dealers said, "Well, I can take care of that."
I can't remember the first band I saw, but I do remember, oh God, well, you're mentioning the Tubes, and they used to, I think, worked on their shows for the more mainstream audiences, because one night Fee Waybill comes out, and I can't remember what the song was. It might have been a song that was never a hit or anything, and he was just in a jumpsuit, kind of looking like a guy, working in a gas station or something. And at one point, at the apex of the song, he pulls this one chord, and the whole thing just drops, and he's stark naked. It was a hippie speakeasy, is really what it was, with cigarette papers and the candy machine, and you could sit at the bar and just light up, and then the community was like friendly, no matter if you're a Hells Angel, and you got along with them, unless you got a little too close to their bikes. And I did see one time, old pool cue back over somebody's head, and that wasn't pretty.
There was no problem.
No, there was no problem at all.
Until some guy tried to steal a beer from me, and the Hells Angels jumped in there and went out and kicked his ass because you don't mess with Candy Joe.
The Hells Angels actually took care of everybody that worked there. They took care of the door, they took care of us as the bartenders.
I didn't even think
we never had a problem with them at all, ever.
I didn't know
in high school, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71. We had so much blast there. Hey, we saw the sign that said Holy City, we're almost there. I can make it from my house to Chateau in 11 minutes, and that is driving legally. But we're 17, 18 years old. We drank forever there. And, you know, we only drank beer. We didn't drink hard alcohol because we waited to get home to do that, you know, or back down the mountain by Lexington Dam. But so, yeah, we went to Mountain Charlie's. We did all this other stuff. But one of the most funnest things is that I got to go out doing stuff for KFAT Radio and go out and hand out T-shirts at all these different establishments. Mountain Charlie's, the Chateau, every place that KFAT had anybody show up there, play a guitar for a minute or two.
Well, there were just guys like me and my friends that would just go there to listen to music and drink and watch Captain Whizzo's light show. You know, I mean, there's places like that would never happen again for the reason that those people that were there would never happen again.
And nobody ever asked us for ID, and we just had a blast. So I don't know what else to tell you, but you know, that was a fun time in my life, and I'll never forget it.
Please, my friend, hear me out before you have to go.
Well, you know, it was really a freewheeling time. Things were a lot different then, a lot looser. You know, the whole hippie movement, it was really going pretty strong back then. And that whole peace, love, dope thing, I mean, it really worked, you know? So when you went to the Chateau, it was just a great vibe. You always had a good time. You didn't worry about the bikers beating you up. I mean, everybody was there to have a good time. So it was awesome. Every time I went there, it was big fun.
By the 1980s, the Chateau Liberte was abandoned and closed to the public. After the Loma Prieta earthquake of 1989, the place was almost in complete ruin. But in 1996, lifelong Los Gatos Mountains resident George Rabe bought the crumbling property and surrounding grounds. With early photos as guides, Rabe meticulously restored the structure using original materials whenever possible. Today, the Chateau Liberte is the home of George Rabe, who is also the caretaker of a large collection of Chateau-related memorabilia going back over a century.
Up in the morning, watch the north wind rise, bringing fire down from the sky.